All right, good morning, MBA fans and friends. Happy to welcome you to our next edition of the MBA Investor Spotlight. I'm happy to welcome J.W. Fisher. With me this morning, the Fisher companies have been an investor in economic development here with the MBA for quite some time. So welcome and happy to have you this morning.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for making time for us. I always like to start with, and I think I warned you ahead of time, that I love to start with your why. So why Midland? Why your industry? And of course, why Fisher companies?
Well, we're about to celebrate our 100th anniversary of business in February. So my great-grandfather actually chose Midland. And it's a bit of a mystery why. They moved from Findlay, Ohio in 1902. And my grandfather, who along with my grandmother started our business in 1925, was 10. So he had distinct memories of the move, and we're always a little bit confused on why it happened. But they quickly, they were farmers. They moved here, I believe, really because the land was available in Midland, and they had a farm out on Gordonville Road, just south of town. And in 1925, Grandpa and Grandma did a road job and started a gravel pit, and Fisher Sand and Gravel was formed. We've been in business ever since, and it's a pretty much an American story. There's 3 boys and 3 girls, and 3 boys served in the Army in World War II, came back, bought the business, half the business from Grandpa and Grandma. And Grandpa and Grandma gave half the business and all the land to the girls. So the 3 boys had to buy them out, and that was their way of being fair to both sides of the family. And so I'm 3rd generation. We have 4th generation, my Uncle Bud's grandsons and my son running businesses. And so we're well set up for the next 100 years. And why Midland? It's in our blood. Right? We're all born here. We're all raised here. We got 100 years of history here. We've been part of this community. We've seen it grow. We've seen it get better and better. Not that it was ever bad, but it just keeps improving. We like to think that we do our part. Certainly there are bigger entities here that do more, and our foundations do a lot. But the nice thing about Midland is everybody does their part. And it all works together, and we bring a lot of know-how and a lot of kind of in-kind services, get things done. And the Dow Foundation and Dow Chemical and the other foundations contribute money, and it just all works.
Certainly, and absolutely, just to tag on that, philanthropy is a big part of Midland, and certainly in your blood, being a part of Midland. And I would be remiss in not mentioning that philanthropy, certainly in the ways that you give back to the community and the infrastructure work that you've been doing. And I didn't prep you for this question. I promise no surprises. However, when the dam failure happened, I recall a story where someone said, I was talking about what happened in the dam failure, and I was just going on and on and on. And I was talking to someone about how terrible it was. And then he introduced himself, and I think you were maybe driving a backhoe or something like that. And I said, and then I felt so silly because I realized that who I was talking to was J.W. Fisher. So she kind of was laughing. She said, and then I felt really silly because I was, telling him how things should be done. I think it was one of the business owners in downtown Sanford. And
Yeah, well, I know who it was, yeah.
So I just had to recount that story. She said, Nicole, I was so embarrassed, but it was a great little story. But how do you personally connect with kind of the mission, vision, values of Midland, right? We talk a lot about philanthropy and giving back, and certainly we see that in the infrastructure work, but also just broadly with Fisher companies.
So I think I'm just kind of doing what I was raised and taught to do.
Yeah.
To be honest, I mean, my parents and uncles and aunts and my mom and dad all modeled it. Since I've worked in the businesses essentially since I was able to walk, and in one form or another, he's tagged along. I was part of those efforts in a lot of them. Out on a Saturday working on the Little League field or whatever project Uncle Bill was working on. I really can't say that I've made a conscious decision that, I'm going to be this and give this. It's just kind of cooked into how we were raised. And there are things I can do that other people can't do, and there are things other people can do that I can't. Midland has this culture where people are willing to give of their time. And money's important, but time is a precious thing. And the great thing about Midland is our people are willing to give of their time.
And sometimes we talk about, the first step is just showing up
That's right.
and just being a part of the helpers that show up. So much appreciated. So you're a native. And so I always like to ask, what's your favorite hidden gem, or maybe the place you like to go that maybe is a little off the beaten path?
I've thought of that. That's a difficult question. I think Midland's a little hidden gem.
That's fair.
The whole community is, but I think maybe what's underrated is our out county schools, Bullet Creek, Coleman, Meridian. Those are fantastic. I went to Bullet Creek. I'm a proud Bullet Creek alumni. We bring in co-ops, and I tell them I'm alumni from 19th class of 75. They all are shocked that I'm still walking around, but those places are doing a great job. We get a lot of employees from there, and they come ready to work. They come smart, intelligent, hardworking young people, and I think they're underestimated value or underestimated asset.
Certainly. When we talk about workforce and talent in our community, one of the things we talk about with our site selectors, or as we're pitching a project, they'll ask sometimes what sets your workforce or your labor shed apart. And I always talk about the grit and resiliency and how hardworking our workforce is. So certainly would echo that.
It is. I'm kind of long in the tooth. I guess I'm one of the last of the baby boomers, but we're all kind of disparaged the Gen Z and the millennials. They grew up with phones in their faces, but we're finding lots of hardworking young people. And I tell everybody, it's the same story. We're turning into our parents. When I got out of college and I was a baby boomer, my dad and uncles, or he's not going to work, he's no good, he grew up watching TV. It's a little bit the same story over and over again. Well, we find you just have to work at it. You got to show up at schools, you got to co-op, you got to intern college people. You got to give people a chance, and you just can't complain about it. You got to go to work and solve the problem. We're having great success.
I love to hear that. So I guess it's always helpful to kind of see how many employees, what does Fisher Company's impact look like? And I know you have several different divisions, so that's a bigger question, but.
So we do. We have 10 companies, all kind of around the construction industry in Bucks Run, which was built on an old gravel pit. So in the mid-Michigan area, we have 400 employees. We're a bit seasonal, so it kind of peaks in the summer and drops a little. But we have about 400 employees in the mid-Michigan area. And then our southern division, Fisher Contracting Southern Division, has about 100 employees right now.
Okay.
Maybe 120. They're pretty busy down there. It's not winter down there yet.
Yeah, not just yet. Sure. So I like to ask, we talk about one of the benefits of the Great Lakes Bay region and Midland County in particular is the accessibility of leadership. And so as a high point or a benefit of working in our area. And part of that is being able to have open discussions about what it's like to be a leader in our community. And so what I'd like to ask is, and talk about, is an unanticipated challenge or skill set that in a moment or in a project you've had to kind of adapt and maybe grow in, maybe on the fly, or a time you had to tap into some other leadership in our community to really learn something quickly.
Oh boy.
Or grow in.
They had so many disasters and so many jobs over years that you kind of learn on all of them.
Yeah.
It's really your mistakes and your problems that make you grow. I don't know if I can think of a specific one. We're pretty nuts and bolts engineering based. So what I've learned though is people in town are willing to help if you're willing to ask.
Sure.
And I can't tell you the people as I was younger and taking on projects that maybe were above my experience level, the number of people in town that would stop by to help. And not just come by and criticize, and you roll up their sleeves and say, this is what I think you ought to do, and I'm going to show you how to do it. It's kind of that being willing to show up actually put some skin in the game.
I appreciate that. So every organization has its own strategic focus and goal, something that's really, you're focused on right now. Is there one particular strategic focus or goal that Fisher Companies is working on right now?
Well, we're getting ready to celebrate our 100th year in business.
Cool.
So that turns out to be a harder thing than you think, or more work than you think. So we got the whole family involved in that, and that's been fun to work through. And we're transitioning it from my third generation to fourth generation.
Wonderful.
It's not really much of a transition because fourth generation's already running businesses, but we're taking a hard strategic look at what is the best way to move forward. We pretty well do work now everywhere between Sault Ste. Marie and the Gulf of Mexico and the Mississippi and the Appalachians. So, we're a very different company in scope than when we were 20 years ago or even 10 years ago.
Sure.
But we're still the same people. Our focus is do what's best for the project, take care of your customer, show up every day, work hard, do your work well, and give back to the community. And I don't see any of those things changing.
So it sounds like those same values that really Midland embodies.
It really is
Rooted in, and that's kind of how Fisher grew out of, or maybe Midland formed Fisher and Fisher formed Midland.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I won't, belabor too much, but two really quick things. I always like to ask if there's a book, a podcast, a leader that you really stick closely to follow, or maybe read, or that you would recommend.
The answer is no.
No?
No. I thought about that. I'm a big reader. I read a lot, but I can't think of one that I would say, read this and it's going to show you the roadmap
Sure.
to the future. I'm a big believer in reading the Bible. I think there's a lot of wisdom there that people can gain. I happen to be a strong believer, but I think there's wisdom there even if you don't choose to believe. I will say it's more about who you model yourself after.
Sure.
Picking, I think, particularly for young people, it's important to choose who your role models are. And stay away from the glitz and the glamour, and find people who are working in the community and are making a difference.
Sure.
So I grew up. I knew Frank Gerace very well. Founded the Gerace companies. He and my dad were great friends. Of course, I had my dad and Uncle Bill and Uncle Bud. Johnny Bartels was a big mentor of mine. And then there are people all over Dow Chemical that took the time to mentor. Ted Doan kind of took me under his wing in a lot of different ways. And sometimes they were kind of hard lessons. They were looking out for my best interest, but that didn't always come sugar-coated.
Sure.
So I would say rather than a book, I guess if I had to pick a book, I'd pick the Bible. But I would say choose some good role models and figure out what they're doing that makes a difference, what made them successful, and what it is about them that makes them able to make a difference in the community.
Sure. So to some extent, open your eyes, look around, see who's doing great, and follow in those footsteps.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. And then what's next for Fisher Companies? It sounds like over the last 10 years, you've really done a lot of growth and expanded your impact area. So what's next?
Well, making this transition to the fourth generation is a big step. Our growth, we moved down to Tennessee in 2009. We followed Hemlock Semiconductor down there with a strategy of building business around that project. Get ourselves started with a customer we knew, get ourselves established so our vendors and our subcontractors would learn who we are and know that we pay our bills.
Sure.
And build a business around that. And that's worked. I have to say I almost pulled the plug 2 or 3 times down there, but now it's become an important part of our business. We do about 50% of our volume down there, and I think there's a lot of growth opportunity down there. In Michigan, it's continue doing what we're doing and grow organically, and if there are opportunities for strategic moves, whether it's probably centers around gravel reserves type things. Take advantage of those when those opportunities are there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. We're always happy to work with Fisher, and just many, many thanks to you and your team for all you do for our community, and always a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you so much.